The story begins in an urban neighborhood where tensions between the police and the Black community are ever present. A patrol receives a call regarding a minor altercation, and two officers, including Officer Martinez, quickly arrive at the scene. Martinez, young, impulsive, and known for his brutal interventions, stands out for his arrogant attitude and contempt for the people, especially Black individuals. Upon arrival, they spot a Black woman in her 40s, dressed simply, standing in the middle of the incident. Without even bothering to assess the situation or listen to her account, Martinez steps out of the car with palpable aggression. His gaze is filled with suspicion, as if he has already decided her guilt. Ignoring her explanations, he abruptly interrupts her and, without further ado, attempts to restrain her. When the woman, in a firm but calm voice, asks why she is being treated this way, Martinez, excited by the adrenaline and annoyed by her verbal resistance, slaps her violently in front of a horrified crowd. What Martinez does not know is that this woman, named Carolina, is the mother of his direct superior, Captain Ramirez, a man respected not only for his rank but for his integrity and his fight against police abuses. Carolina, a Black woman with a sharp gaze, is a figure of strength in her community. She raised her children, including Ramirez, on her own, instilling in them dignity and resilience in the face of injustice. Her calm and presence command immediate respect. Martinez, oblivious to the gravity of his actions, wore a dangerous satisfaction after slapping Carolina. He hadn't once considered that she might be more than just another face in the neighborhood he despised. The crowd, initially silent, began to murmur, and then a man dared to shout, "She didn't do anything." Despite the pain of the attack, Carolina remained calm. Her face, marked by the slap, was only a reflection of the inner strength she had always had. She had known this kind of violence for a long time, the kind that reduces you to a number to the color of your skin, but she also knew that her dignity wouldn't be taken away so easily. Ramon Martinez, adjusting his belt, couldn't help but glance at the crowd that was beginning to form around them. He took pleasure in the power he thought he had over this woman and the crowd, interpreting their initial silence as submission. But what he didn't yet realize was that the tide was about to turn, and that Captain Ramirez was not a man to let such a blunder pass, especially when it concerned his own mother. Carolina lifted her gaze, fixing Martinez with a calmness that irritated him even more. She knew her son, and she knew that at this moment, he would intervene. The question was not if, but when. The next day, Ramon showed up to work as usual, his uniform pristine, his face carrying an expression of boredom. He still had no idea that his world was about to collapse. As he made his way to his office, a colleague called out to him with a serious expression. "Ramon, Captain Ramirez wants to see you. It's urgent." The walk to the captain's office never seemed so long. Ramon tried to remain calm, but his mind raced, replaying each action, trying to guess the reason for the call. The whispers in the hallway, the exchanged looks, all of it felt charged with meaning. When he entered Captain Ramirez's office, he was met with a tense atmosphere. The captain, arms crossed and a grave expression on his face, stood behind his desk. Next to him, an older officer appeared equally concerned. "Ramon, sit down," the captain said firmly. Ramon obeyed, his heart pounding. He had seen the anger and disappointment in the eyes of the other officers, and it made him nervous. "Yesterday, you slapped a woman. I want to know what was going through your mind," the captain began, his voice growing colder. Ramon opened his mouth to protest, but Ramirez interrupted him.
"No.
No justifications. I want to hear your version of the events." Ramon's pride pushed him to answer. "She was aggressive. She didn't want to cooperate. I did what was necessary to handle the situation." The captain's eyes lit up with a mix of disbelief and anger. "Do you know who that woman is?" "That's my mother, Ramon." A heavy silence settled in the room. Ramon, taken aback, paled. "What?" "No, I didn't." "You didn't even care who she was. You acted like a brute, as usual. And now, there will be consequences." Ramon sat up straight in his chair, realizing the extent of his stupidity. The captain's words echoed in his mind, but He couldn't bring himself to realize that he had struck a woman who had dedicated her life to raising children with dignity. Captain, Silence. I'm organizing a meeting with the authorities. We're going to address the issue of police violence and abuse of power. I will make sure the other officers understand that this behavior will not be tolerated. Fear began to rise in Ramon's stomach. The prospect of an internal investigation terrified him. He knew his future in the police force was now uncertain. Captain, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Exactly, Ramon. You didn't realize. But now, it's time for you to understand. I want you to grasp the impact of your actions, not just on the victim, but on the entire community. Ramon lowered his head, aware that he had crossed a line that few dared to cross, but he couldn't help feeling a wave of anger. How could he be treated like a criminal when he had simply done his job? Troubled, Ramon felt his face flush under Ramirez's piercing gaze. He desperately tried to formulate a defense, but the words seemed to escape him. Officer Jones, who had witnessed the scene, stepped forward, his voice filled with indignation. Captain, we need to be clear. What happened is not just unacceptable, it's regressive and completely unethical. Ramon's behavior has racist implications that cannot be ignored. Jones's words hit Ramon like a punch to the stomach. He wanted to protest, but a sharp gesture from Jones silenced him. Don't try to deny it, Ramon, Jones continued, his voice full of authority. This kind of behavior is disgusting, especially coming from a law enforcement officer. The silence that followed was crushing. Ramon struggled to find his words. How could he have let his prejudices take over? The reality hit him like a ton of bricks. I didn't think. Obviously, it didn't think. That's precisely the problem, Ramirez declared. You're supposed to be a protector, not an aggressor. Your mother and everyone like her deserves respect. Ramon felt trapped in a whirlpool of shame and anger. The thought of his mother, who had sacrificed so much to give him a better life, weighed heavily on his shoulders. I'm going to request an internal investigation, Ramirez continued. Ramon's actions need to be examined, and it's crucial that law enforcement take responsibility. Ramon grew even paler. The looks from the other officers weighed on him, mixing judgment and disapproval. He knew it wasn't just his professional future at stake, but also his personal integrity. As the silence stretched on, Captain Ramirez, in a determined tone, continued. The consequences of your actions won't just be limited to an internal investigation. We will implement training sessions on police violence, racial discrimination, and professional ethics. All officers, including you, will have to attend. Ramon felt uncomfortable, his thoughts swirling as he tried to grasp the gravity of the situation. He knew he hadn't just disappointed his superior, but that he had also betrayed the trust of the community he was supposed to protect. I understand, Captain. I am committed to attending those sessions, but I didn't think it would have such repercussions. I just wanted to do my job. Jones, still present, intervened firmly. This isn't about your job, Ramon. It's about respect. Citizens are not enemies, they have rights, and you failed to recognize them. You need to learn to see people as individuals, not as suspects. Jones's words echoed in Ramon's head. Each accusation was a mirror, reflecting his own flaws. He recalled the crowd's reaction during the incident, those shocked and horrified faces, and he felt even more ashamed. I'm ready to change, he assured, though his voice trembled slightly. I don't want to be that person anymore. Ramirez straightened, scrutinizing his subordinate with an intensity that made him shiver. I want actions, not words, Ramon. Every day, you'll have to prove that you've learned the lesson. I will no longer tolerate this kind of behavior. In addition to the training, you will be placed under surveillance for an indefinite period. This means every interaction with the public will be recorded and reviewed. Ramon nodded, aware of the magnitude of this punishment. The body-worn camera he would have to wear would be a constant reminder of his mistakes. He felt like a prisoner, condemned to carry his burden in public. But deep down, a glimmer of hope remained. Perhaps this ordeal would be an opportunity for reinvention. I will make amends, Captain, he promised sincerely. I will learn, I will listen. Ramirez let out a sigh, visibly exhausted. He wanted to believe in Ramon's ability to change, but the road ahead would be filled with obstacles. Very well. But remember, it's not just your career at stake. It's the trust the community places in us. We can't afford to fail. As Ramon left the office, he felt crushed by the weight of his actions. But this pressure, though heavy, was also a new beginning. He would have to confront his prejudices, learn to listen, and understand others. In his mind, he saw Carolina, standing before him, not as a victim, but as a source of strength. He knew he owed her a radical change. In the days that followed, Ramon worked hard to change. Each encounter with the public became a test. He had to remain vigilant, aware of the cameras and the eyes watching him. His behavior became more considerate, but he often clashed with his own upbringing and instincts. One day, while patrolling, he encountered a group of teenagers. Instead of ignoring them or viewing them with suspicion, he stopped, approached them, and started a conversation.
Hey guys.
How's it going? The teenagers, initially surprised by his friendliness, exchanged looks before responding timidly. To his surprise, they opened up, sharing stories of their lives in the neighborhood. Ramon realized how valuable and necessary these exchanges were. Each interaction brought him a new perspective. Little by little, he was learning to deconstruct his prejudices, to see people as individuals with their own struggles and dreams. But despite his efforts, the shadow of the incident with Carolina didn't fade. He knew he had to make amends. And when he heard about the upcoming community meeting to discuss tensions between the police and residents, he made a decision. Ramon volunteered to attend, even though it scared him. It was an opportunity to confront his past and learn directly from the voices he had ignored. With fear in his stomach, he headed to the meeting place, ready to listen, learn, and, he hoped, repair what had been broken. This story reminds us that everyone has the power to change. By confronting his prejudices and opening himself to voices often ignored, Ramon embodies the hope for a better future where understanding and respect prevail over fear and violence.